It's my absolute pleasure on behalf of South Beach Symposium and the dermatologists and aesthetic physicians out there to spend some time with Dave Mazzetti, who's the CEO of Evolus. And Evolus has been an incredibly innovative company, taking an innovative product to market. And it's really been a pleasure to have the opportunity to see the evolution of a new way of doing business, a new way of helping both the dermatologic community, aesthetic community, and the aesthetic physicians help really build their practice in new ways. And David, you've been the spearhead behind a lot of this, and I want to thank you for it, and thank you for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be on. Yeah,
wonderful. So let me delve right into this and start with the first questions. You know, we see our practices have reopened across the board. Obviously, we're seeing another surge now in many areas, which makes it a little more difficult. I think that what we've learned is that as long as we take care, both for our staff and our patients, we're not a source of infection, which I think is great. How do you see the companies, how do you see Evolus's role in assisting dermatologists, aesthetic physicians to reopen and re-energize their practice and their patients?
Yeah, it's a great question. And like you're experiencing, I've spoken to many of your colleagues as well. It's a chainsaw recovery. And I think we're all learning that we have to be resilient through this, be crafty. And we also recognize that we're all in this together, that there isn't a separation between the companies and doctors, that we're all one. And frankly, for us as Evolus, we've only been commercial for a year. So we're a small company, just as many small practice owners are experiencing the challenges of what COVID has presented to their business. We feel the same thing. And so we feel that it's an important part of us building our company to show during challenging times how we support our customer base. And we did a lot during the launch to do things differently. It was all about the evolution of this category, providing doctors with more options, and giving them the ability to do that in a way where they can make their practices even more profitable. And so we've played a role in expanding that even further. I think through this COVID period, the first thing we did within several weeks of COVID hitting, beyond just extending payment terms and things like that, we introduced a stimulus program called Evolus 350, where we introduced flat pricing for all customers, regardless of the volume of the customer. And we eliminated sort of the different levels that are required to get better pricing. And we realized that, frankly, COVID doesn't see any boundaries, and practices are struggling during this time. And so in addition to having extended payment terms, profitability matters more. And you know, your procedural value per hour looks very different in this post-COVID environment than it did pre. That's just a fact. That's happening everywhere around the country. And so we have to evolve with you, and we believe we have. We've done that amongst other things, but we feel good about the track that we're on. And being a company that's newer, obviously cash is important for us as well. And so we've tried to make concessions where we feel like it's in the long-term best interest of building our company with our customers that support us.
No, I want to commend you, because you guys were first out in a lot of these innovations for helping the doctors through this difficult time, both with extended payments, with the flat pricing, which I know a number of practices have really appreciated. So thank you for that. So I want to now touch on something that's kind of the elephant in the room a little bit. And this is about, you know, the concerns for your devoted dermatologists and aesthetic physicians and their patients. And it has to do with the Allergan court ruling. And the concern is how that will impact Jeuveau, how it will impact the company, and
Sure. And I know you appreciate this with an ongoing case. There's only so much I can speak to directly here, but there's a couple things that are important. The first is there is an ongoing court case between actually our Korean partner and a Korean partner that Allergan is developing a product with. And of course, within that suit, both Evolus is named as well as our competitor here, Allergan. Mm-hmm. That case is ongoing. So what you mentioned before is in July, there was a preliminary ruling in that case. Right. but that court case will continue on. So the key thing to recognize is, number one, this is all about having more options in the market, and that's what we stand for, is to bring you and your peers more options, and to continue to drive the quality of care, and that's why we exist. And we'll continue to challenge this in the court system, and nothing's changed as it relates to our ability to service you, the flow of product, or any of the programs. We have not changed anything that we're doing operationally, and we'll continue in the backdrop to continue to work through the legal parameters that are involved here in this case.
Glad to hear that. That will give a lot of solace to all your customers and to the patients who appreciate, the product without question. My question is, how do you guys see the companies adapting for the future, your growth, other aspects, other thoughts of new product lines, other thoughts of where you see the future for Evolus?
Sure. Well, the good news is I think this category has proven now through multiple different challenging events, whether you think about the 2008 recession or now this COVID period, that as long as you're not entirely shut down where you can't physically open the doors to your practice, this category is extremely resilient. And we do fall within the regimens that people live with once they're going about their lives. And even in this post-COVID environment, things like hair, nails, injectables, they're resilient markets. People want to go back to having some normalcy, and these products add a lot of value. And we can't underestimate the psychological benefit of these products. As a matter of fact, we received approval in Europe late last year. And in Europe, to get approval, you have to prove that there's a psychological benefit for these toxins, as you know. And so your approval is actually a therapeutic approval, even though the product's used for cosmetic purposes. And in some ways, they're not wrong. And that's what you're seeing here, is even though we don't have that indication here in the US because FDA doesn't look at it through the same lens as they do in Europe, you see that with your own patients. And so I don't think the macro lens on this category changes in any way. In terms of patients' interest in entering the space, the millennials and that macro trend towards them being more open to treatments. Certainly the things that bother them as they're younger are going to be different than an older demographic. But the trend around toxins and fillers is here to stay. There's a significant number of unmet need areas that there's technologies that are entering the market here in the near future, and there's technologies that are even further down the road that are interesting. I also, when I joined Evolus, my feeling was there's room for a lot more innovative companies that are willing to invest, not just innovation in the service model or innovation in technology, but innovation in the product side into categories that don't exist. And we do feel that we can play a role in that. We have a seasoned R&D team that has a lot of experience working with products, a lot of them big products that are out in the market today. And so I look forward to, over the course of time, unfortunately with R&D, it takes time, as you know, you do a number of studies, but over the course of the next, call it, handful of years, all the way through 10 years, this market will evolve significantly to the positive. And I think anyone who's in this space who's feeling near-term pain of, maybe their practice might not be as profitable, or you may have to shut down because you had a COVID case, I'll say this is going to be, it's a larger speed bump than we thought, but it's a speed bump, and it's a long journey, and we're all in this for the long haul, and we're committed to aesthetics. It's our only business that we have. So we're going to be resilient through this, just as I'm sure you will.
The idea of, unmasking this, the idea of saying, what does this do for us, much more than just appearance, is really critical. So I'll let you talk a little bit about maybe thinking and musing on where this can go for individual well-being as well as society.
Yeah. As usual, you're a step ahead of the curve, right? Thinking of the implications of COVID in terms of how people think about aesthetics, perhaps differently than they would have otherwise. As you know, this whole selfie era prior to COVID was another sort of boon for this market, because people are looking at their faces from different angles, and they're recognizing that maybe I do need to do something more. And that's probably a big part of this millennial trend. And that takes time. Those trends take time to really go deep enough into the foundation and the psychology of a consumer. And I think you're touching on what could be the next trend, which is there's a greater focus with the mask now on the upper half of the face in a way that there wasn't before. And how does that then change human interaction? How do you read individuals differently? And of course, some people use those muscles a lot more than others. And there's perceptions that come with that, and those perceptions are probably magnified when you can't see the lower face. And it's a very good point that is worth exploring from whether it's directly in clinical development or even through other types of studies to help reveal some of that. I can tell you initially some of the things we're doing, and I credit our marketing team. Mike Jafar is our chief marketing officer. Of course, they're simple ideas, but they start to bring to life this next phase, which is models wearing masks and getting some of those images out there of people are getting treated and so on, because that is the new norm. And we all recognize it's here to stay for some window of time. No one's really clear for how long. And so walking into a practice and seeing a model who's smiling full face, it's not how you're generally being greeted by people you don't know very well. It's not like this, right? And so I think starting to adapt the way we think to this new norm is an important idea.
Evolus, I want to say, has been by far the most innovative in how you've approached this, how you've approached a category that's been very sterile in a lot of ways, and even in how you've communicated, both to doctors and patients. So, I would applaud you to continue that innovation, because I think that it is the future and people need it.
Appreciate those comments. I know that means a lot to the team who's worked very hard to build the company and the brand. It's been neat to sketch out an entirely new model and to watch that build as it has. And we're really thrilled with the success we've had since the launch. We've been on the market for a year, and we're on track to be one of the top 5 launches ever in aesthetics. And a lot of that has to do with the support we've had from you and your peers. And so we really appreciate that. We wouldn't be here without you.
Any thoughts, to end this for what you see over the next few months and how you can help us, help ourselves to help our practices?
Sure. Well, I say this to my team as well. It's resilience. It's such an important word because that's what really stands out during challenging times. And I've got to say, I'm very impressed with your peers and practices I talk to, because everyone is very resilient and quick to adapt to make sure that we're offering all the right safety protocols. We're trying to contribute in that way. All of our collaterals shifted to safety measures, right? And so protective equipment that we're providing practices. So I'll say I'm really proud of what everyone's doing in this space.
I am so looking forward to seeing you at South Beach in person in February, without question. And in the meantime, I want to thank you again for this time spent with us and all of your insights.
Appreciate your time. Yeah, this was great. Hopefully I'll see you at South Beach. Look forward to that.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Take care.